Hello, happy Saturday. Welcome everybody to the Empowered Living community page. This is Paul Martinelli. We're going to be continuing our study on the Fully Resourced program. Got a great clip for you this week. Hey, for all of you who are joining from the John Maxwell team, from the Brain Revolution, from Life Success Consultants, welcome. Great to have all of you. For all the new members onto the platform, welcome. Great to have you guys here. Make sure you like and comment and share the video if it adds value to you. In the comments, there'll be ways for you to kind of connect with us and check out our YouTube channel where there's free resources. Just got done on a free teaching on Think and Grow Rich, an entrepreneur's journey. All of those videos are available on the YouTube channel. So if you're a fan of Think and Grow Rich, you can go check that whole series out. We'll get started here just about in about 15 more seconds, give some people a chance to jump in. Welcome everybody. Great to have you guys here. We're continuing our study on the Fully Resourced program. This is a program, it's 6 hours long of video and comes with 12 months of mentoring. And what we're doing on Saturdays here is we're taking different clips and sharing the clip, and then I'm going to do a little bit of teaching about the clip. So let's jump right into this week's clip. Enjoy.
If you are living any area of your life in anything less than what your heart truly desires, it's most likely because of the programming you received. Some programs are good, others are viruses, and scarcity and limitation are the viruses of most people's programming. You were probably programmed like I was. I was told what I could and should either expect or not expect out of life based on where we live, based on the education I had, or in my case, I was a high school dropout and didn't have. I was based on our kind of family's history and past failures and achievements. These become the invisible boundaries that I would have to break free from. And you probably have some of those boundaries yourself. Your own set of invisible boundaries that drive your behavior and form the habitual patterns that you operate from day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute, second by second, unless and until you change them. At the time of our programming, we lacked the conscious awareness of reason, meaning we had no ability to reason or challenge these ideas. We simply accepted them as our truth. And most of this programming came from the same people who taught us to believe in Santa Claus, the Tooth Fairy, the Easter Bunny, and the linguistic metaphors like money doesn't grow on trees, good things come to those who wait. The collective concepts of our programming form our self-image and our self-esteem, the image that we hold of ourselves, of our potential, and of our beliefs, the values or worldliness we believe that we have the right to have. The really good news for you now is that you are no longer that unaware child. You do have the ability to challenge those old beliefs. You can explore the past invisible boundaries. And this program is going to help you do it.
All right. So just a short one this time. Last week, I think the clip was about 10 or 15 minutes. This was just a 2-minute clip. And I want to ask you 3 questions based on this clip, right? Because Socrates said that the quality of the questions we ask determine the quality of the answers that we get in our life, right? And so all through the Fully Resourced program, there's an exercise guide that goes with it, and it's 6 hours of content. But it takes people about 3 or 4 months to go through because of the exercises within the program. And then, of course, there's monthly mentorship calls. It's a 12-month program. If you want to learn more about it, you can click on the link and jump into the program. So here's the first question I want to ask you. What invisible boundaries might you be having? We talk about invisible boundaries. This idea of invisible boundaries comes from the famous Henry David Thoreau quote in his writing on Walden, where he says, if one advances confidently in the direction of their dream, endeavors to live the life that they're imagining, he says that they will meet with success in unexpected common hours. Most people know the quote. Many people have that as a refrigerator magnet. What they don't know is the next portion of the quote, where he goes on to say that once we meet with success at unexpected common hours, he says we pass an invisible boundary. And he says that we have a new understanding of the old laws that would govern our life and new laws that establish order in our lives. It's a phenomenal quote. And so I did a program probably 3 or 4 years ago called Designing Your Empowered Life. It was a year-long program. And in that program, we identify 72 of these invisible boundaries. So if you think about it, we have invisible boundaries of our own thinking, right? We can have a boundary about what we think is even possible for ourselves. It's amazing how quick people are to make agreement with limitation in their own thinking about what's possible for their lives. And what's even worse is we've got family and friends, well-meaning family and friends, who also fail to see what's possible for us. Oftentimes, our family and friends have an image of who we are, of what we're capable of, based on our past, and they have a very hard time breaking that attachment to the image that they hold of us, and so they can never see us in a new future positive. They see us stuck where we are, and whenever you find yourself stuck in this boundary of what's possible for your life. So when you have a dream or an idea or a goal that comes to your mind, and if you find yourself within the next 24 hours diminishing it or killing that dream by saying, I'll never be able to do this, or thinking of all the reasons why it wouldn't be possible for your life, I encourage people in the video. I say, go outside and look up and see that there's footprints on the moon. We can go much further than the moon now. I mean, there have been 21 landings now on Mars. Hard to believe. And there are stations now on Mars. There are rovers on Mars. There's now helicopters and drones hovering and mapping the surface of Mars. Think about that. China just landed on Mars and is doing a whole new study where there was one time an ocean on Mars. And, of course, everybody's looking for water. But think about that. If you think about just the history of flight, about 120 years ago, we were introduced to the kingdom of flight. And now we've got landings on Mars. We've got rockets on their way to Pluto. So, before you begin to say what's not possible in your life, you've got to realize that the same creative ability that has put footprints on the Mars and have rovers on Mars and footprints on the moon, that same creativity is in you. Those same resources are within you. We also have boundaries around our giving and our receiving. I think for most people, we've broken through the boundary of giving. Most people are very giving. I have found that most people, if asked to support a cause or to help other people, very willing to give. But for a lot of people, myself included, for many years of my life, probably the first 30 years of my life, I was very uncomfortable receiving. It would be almost impossible for somebody to pay me a compliment. And see, our inability to receive is very closely tied to our self-image and our self-esteem. Self-image is the image that we hold of ourselves, the image that we believe we are, and what we believe how other people see us. Self-esteem is different. Self-esteem is my personal self-regard, how I value me and how I believe you value me. That becomes my self-esteem. And most people have a really hard time receiving even a compliment. And, I've been mentored in my life where one of my mentors taught me that if you can't graciously receive, then you'll never learn how to graciously give. Isn't that true? And when somebody would pay me a compliment or say anything nice about me, the first thing I would do again is I would marginalize myself or diminish myself and say, oh, no, it's not me. Or I would give credit to everybody else but wouldn't accept credit for something that I had done well. And it comes across almost as humility One of my favorite pastors of all time, he's passed away, Adrian Rogers, said that humility is a form of rebellion, where we rebel accepting the truth of our resourcefulness from God. We rebel from accepting the gifts given to us, the skills, the talent, the ability from God. And so when rather than accepting the praise or accepting the credit for something good, we pass it on. Rather than glorifying or speaking of where that gift came from, we bounce it off of ourselves. And when we do that, we cheat other people from the experience of giving. And I didn't realize how many times in my life I denied people by not being able to graciously receive, because I had this boundary in my ability to receive. I cheated them of really the gift of giving. I mean, when you give, don't you feel great? Imagine if you were to go to give someone and they wouldn't accept the gift, or they couldn't graciously receive it. We have boundaries of resentment, don't we? There's boundaries of kind of resentment and forgiveness, and we see this all the time. And there's some people who thrive in this boundary, right? There's some people who can hold a grudge. The people who love the negative conflict. It almost feeds them at some level. I mean, we see this on social media all the time, where people post how they've been hurt, or what's wrong with other people, or they strike out to other people, or they won't name other people. I won't say somebody's name, but this person, this is the situation, and they play games, probably to try to get their own resentment and their feelings validated in one of the worst ways. I mean, if we think about resentment is energy. And we know that energy only does two things. It expresses itself and it expands. And if we're stuck in a boundary of resentment where we can't cross to the other side to forgiveness, then that resentment eats away at us and we become toxic. And this is why on social media, I spend most of my time on the Empowered Living page, where I know it's going to be positive, where I know it's going to be supportive. If you just hang out in social media world, it's a pretty toxic place. It's a pretty toxic place. And if we look at people who are stuck in this boundary of resentment is the number one killer of all marriages. It's the number one destructive thing in every business, church, school, organization. Resentment is really toxic energy. And until we learn how to kind of take inventory of ourselves and break free from that boundary, we remain stuck in it. And resentment energy, if it isn't resolved, leads to restriction. And when we restrict, what is restriction? Restriction is where we withdraw or withhold our God-given talent, skill, ability, and potential. And so, we play small. And when we do that, if we don't clear restriction energy, well, it's energy, right? Energy does two things. It expresses itself and expands. It goes right to revenge. And revenge is the act or the desire to cause the source of your resentment, the pain and suffering that you feel. I think it was Gandhi who said, an eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind. And people just can't let things go. I mean, if you have a falling out with somebody, if you're no longer friends, that certainly doesn't mean that you need to be enemies. It certainly doesn't mean that you have to be enemies with that person. And again, some people really thrive in this toxic energy. Thomas Troward, who wrote The Spirit of Opulence, he says to live at this frequency of opulence, we have to live a motto. And the motto is live and let live. He says live and let live is the true motto of the spirit or frequency of opulence. I mean, Jesus taught this, where he said, to pick up our mat. Now look, I'm not suggesting that you be a doormat. I'm not suggesting that you let people walk all over you. But we have to pick up our mat and go. We should no longer stay in the conditions and circumstances that doesn't serve us. We have boundaries of our faith, boundaries of self-confidence, boundaries of potential, boundaries of how much income we can earn, boundaries of how much love will we be willing to receive. And see, whenever we're living our life in one of these boundaries, it holds us back. It separates us from our hopes and our dreams. These boundaries that we remain stuck in fortify our self-doubt. They fortify our fears. And Carl Jung said that until we make these boundaries visible, they will direct our life. And we'll just call it fate. And we can certainly make these boundaries visible. And that's what one of the things that we do in this program. In the Fully Resourced program, it's specifically designed to help you take inventory of yourself, to really look at yourself, to go to the mirror. And instead of looking in the mirror and saying, who's the matter with me? Going to the mirror and saying, I'm going to accept responsibility in my life, that I'm responsible for what I feel, for what I think, for how I act. And when I accept responsibility for those things, then my attitude becomes right. Because if we think about what attitude is the composite of our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions. It's not any one of those things. It's a composite of all three of those things. Here's the second question I'd like you to ask as a result of just listening to this 2-minute clip is, who was responsible for programming your thinking? I mean, make no mistake about it. We are programmed from a very early age. Depending on which research study you read, most people don't reach the age of reasoning before the age of 9 or 12. So before the age of 9 or 12, we haven't really developed our critical reasoning faculty, right? We haven't been able to, we're not able to reason inductively. We just reason deductively. In other words, we just accept anything that's told us. This is why, young children, if you got young children, cover their ears right now, they believe in Santa Claus, right? They're deductive to the idea. They just accept the idea as truth. They have no capacity to reason inductively. So think about who was responsible for programming you, and how did they program me? Think about money. I think about the people who programmed me about money. I think about my grandparents. I think about my mom. I think about the environment that I grew up in, and the social network and social fabric that I grew up in. Nobody had any money. As a matter of fact, demonizing the rich was a sport in my family. We hated the rich. We thought that the rich were rich because we were poor, and that we were poor because they were making us poor. That because they had a bigger piece of the pie, then that meant that we had a limited piece of the pie. I spent the first half of my life poor based on this programming. What were you programmed to believe about what you could do in your life? You think about it. Were you programmed with the expectation of greatness? Were you programmed with the expectation that you'd become a millionaire, that you'd be able to live your dreams, or were you programmed to default to do kind of what everybody else does, kind of living at the second level of awareness, which is mass consciousness? One of the teachings we have within the Fully Resourced program is that there's 7 levels of conscious awareness. The lowest is animal awareness, where we react or respond. Right? We just kind of react to outside conditions and circumstances, no real thinking. That would keep us in the boundary of resentment for sure. This next level up isn't much better. It's just kind of mass consciousness, where we kind of follow the crowd. We just do what everybody else is doing. And for most people, we were programmed with that expectation. Go to school, get a good job, and stay there. Work the 40-40 plan, as Les Brown would say, where you work 40 hours a week for 40 years and hope to make it safely to death. The people who programmed, what was the expectation of you? When Patrick Hayes placed this book in my hand, he never once taught me what to think. He taught me how to think. He taught me the creative process. For most people, we learn how to think as a byproduct of learning, our ABCs, or 1 + 2 = 3. But very few people, most people, have never been programmed to kind of focus on the creative process within us. Most people have never been programmed with the expectation of greatness, with the expectation that we can be or do or have. Now we'll hear other people talk about, that people can be and do and have whatever they want, but when it comes time for us to truly expect that from ourselves, do we really do it? See, I believe that we were designed and created by God to create in the image of God. That if we're made in the image of God, that means that we create. God is the creator, therefore we're creative, and we create the same way God created. There was a void, and in that void there was no order in the void. So in our conditions and circumstances of our life, there's chaos. And the first thing we want to do is we want to bring order to the chaos. And that order is established by law, that when God designs and creates the universe as we know it, he creates laws that create an established order. Order is heaven's first law. Until you have order, there's nothing but chaos. And so, we have order and then movement. If you have movement before order, of course you have chaos. So it's understanding what were those creative laws. And then we see, how did God create the earth and everything in the earth? Well, he spoke it into existence. And we look at our conditions and circumstances and we begin to understand the laws of our being, the creative laws. And then we begin to speak life into our dreams. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word is made flesh. Life and death begins in the Word. What do you think those words mean? That you and I have the ability to speak life into existence. We have the ability to become aware of a dream or an idea and to speak life into that. And then follow the universal laws of creation. The same laws that govern the creation of everything. They apply equally to you. And if you lack the understanding or awareness of those laws, it's no wonder you find people who are in their 30s, the 40s, 50s, or 60s who find themselves lost without purpose, who feel completely unfulfilled. And they don't know. They find themselves stuck in their 40s or 50s just wondering, what's it all about? Is this as good as it gets? Here's the third question. In the next 12 months, think about the next 12 months. What are you really expecting for your life? Like, what do you really expect? Not what do you hope is going to happen? Not what do not what are your goals? What do you really expect? See, what we expect is kept. What we expect is kept. It's kept in our awareness, and our expectations set up our beliefs. What we expect, we keep it into our awareness, and that establishes a belief. And then our belief drives our behavior. And in the Fully Resourced program, we ask you to look at 5 key areas of your life and what you expect for your life. So, what do you expect in your life as it relates to your spiritual growth? What do you really expect in the next 12 months? What do you expect to show up in your life? If you think of spiritual growth, I think spiritual growth is the awareness of our oneness with our God. What are you expecting in that regard? What are you expecting in the next 12 months as it relates to your primary love relationships, right? Your husband, your wife, your children. What do you really expect out of those relationships? What do you expect in your personal and professional development? What do you think is going to just show up in your life? When we're truly committed, if we're expecting something, we will commit to it. And if we commit to something, we commit in 2 places, right? Our date book, we put our time into it, and then our checkbook, we put our money into it. And so if you look at these 5 key areas, where are you spending your time and your money? Where are you spending your treasure? The next is, what do you expect in the area of the health of your physical body? Are you expecting to be the same weight? Or are you expecting to get on a health plan? Because if you're expecting to get on a health plan, you might begin to go through your closet right now and start getting rid of some of those clothes that won't fit you anymore. If you truly expected it, if you really believed in your heart of hearts, And if you were committed, if you were committed to setting aside the time to do that, if you were committed to buying the right kinds of food and maybe investing in a gym membership, if you truly expected it, you would believe it. What you expect is kept. It would be in your awareness. What do you expect in the flow of freedom as it relates to time and money in your life? What do you really expect is going to show up in your life? In those two areas, in how much time you have and how much money you have. You see, God willing, in the next 365 days, you're going to celebrate another year of life. And on your birthday, you will be surrounded by family and friends, and they'll bring out a cake and there will be candles. And they'll light the candles and people will sing happy birthday, and people will then ask you to close your eyes and make a wish. And you know, for most people, that's the only time they do it that year. It's the only time they actually go inward and really think about what it is that they want. And sadly, the next thing they do is they blow out the flame. They extinguish the flame of their goal, of their dream, of their wish. See, in the next 12 months, you will have a life, either by design or by default. And the design for your life becomes and begins when you become committed to intentional growth. When you begin to make promises to yourself, when you look at these 5 key areas, when you set goals for those areas, and then you be accountable. You do what is one of the higher levels of awareness, which is discipline. Discipline is the ability to give yourself a command and then follow through with it. And so if we think about that, in the next 12 months, what's going to be different for you? Unless you begin to do something different right now, nothing will be different for you. And that's why this whole program, this fully resourced program, is 6 hours long, takes you about 3 or 4 months to go through the program and do all the exercises, and then is supported by 12 months of mentorship with a community of other people. They'll help hold you accountable, to encourage you, to support you. Today's teaching, that I've been talking now for the last 24 minutes, is based on just 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes of a 6-hour program. And what I'm going to be doing every Saturday is I'm going to be taking clips from that program and playing the clip and then talking and teaching around it. And I'm doing it for free because I know some people right now are just in a financial position where they can't invest. And I know other people are just, they have the money to invest, but they lack the belief. See, when Patrick Hayes gave me this book, I could afford the book. This book was $7.99 when he gave it to me. I could afford the book, but I didn't see myself as worthy of the investment. And I know that some people who are watching today, you're there. You have the money to invest in the fully resourced program, but you don't see yourself worthy of the investment. And so I'm gonna bring it to you until you see yourself worthy of the investment. Now, others of you, I know you're ready. And if you are, I'd love for you to click on the link below and enroll in the program. You're going to find that it'd be really transformational for your life. I wanted to thank you for tuning in and joining me on these Saturdays, every Saturday. Again, click on the link below if you want to learn more about the fully resourced program or any of the other programs that we offer. And also go and check out the videos on YouTube. Please like, comment, share. Let us know if you're enjoying these teachings. Hold your image. Be well. God bless.